This message comes from Sony Pictures Classics. Lyricist Lorenz Hart confronts his shattered self-confidence as Richard Rodgers celebrates the opening night of Oklahoma. Blue Moon is now playing in New York and Los Angeles, nationwide, October 24th.
We are not even going to dance around this. I want to know, from your perspective, is Taylor Swift exploiting her massive fandom by releasing so many versions of her new album?
No.
I'm going to say yes with an asterisk, and that asterisk is every pop star exploits their fans in this way. This is not exclusive to Taylor Swift. I cannot state that emphatically enough. This is part of the game of manipulating the Billboard charts, and she just plays it very well.
Hello, hello. I'm Brittany Luce, and you're listening to It's Been a Minute from NPR, a show about what's going on in culture and why it doesn't happen by accident. As of this recording, there are 38 variants of Taylor Swift's new album, The Life of a Showgirl. But are all these variants fan service or fan exploitation? We're getting into it with Stephen Thompson, host for NPR Music and Pop Culture Happy Hour, and Ann Powers, NPR Music critic and correspondent. Ann, Stephen, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having us because, you know, it's Taylor season.
I feel like every season is Taylor season. When you are the main character in our lives, every season belongs to you.
Taylor is the climate crisis of popular music.
She's also the actual climate crisis with how much she uses that private jet.
Gloves are off already. I love it.
My gloves are always off when it comes to Taylor Swift. All right, but Stephen, Ann, can you name any of the different variants?
So there's one that's like, that's showbiz, baby edition.
Very close. You're thinking of the Baby That's Show Business vinyl collection. And I'll give you some of the other names. There was the Deluxe So Punk on the Internet digital version, the Sweat and Vanilla Perfume Portofino Orange Glitter, all one title, vinyl version. And also the Alone in My Tower acoustic CD version. That's just a few. Like I said, there's 38, right?
27 physical, 11 digital.
Right. Now, there's a couple ways to look at this. You could call all of these collectible variants, as some have said, exploitative or manipulative. Maybe for rabid fans, you know, they can't not buy all this. On the other hand, you could call this fan service because Taylor Swift is not forcing anyone to buy her music. Her fans, of their own volition, are the ones putting in their credit card information. Plus, you know, a lot of fans are collectors and like having special violet sparkle or blue shimmer vinyl. You know, buying a vinyl also could be a good investment. One of our producers has a rare Swift vinyl that is currently selling for upwards of $1,000 online.
Wow.
Whoa.
Right. So before the Swifties come for me, I know that Taylor Swift is not the only one releasing all these album variants. I mean, for example, Travis Scott and Fall Out Boy, they each released 31 physical variants of their 2023 albums. But I will say, Taylor Swift gets the most attention for this business tactic. Why do you think she's the one who's seen as preying on her fans?
Well, I think part of it is that is the downside of being the biggest, right? And being the main character in our lives makes her a very rich and juicy target. So it's easy to kind of single her out as an emblem of the problem. But Brittany, like you said, there are many, many, many stars in pop, hip-hop, R&B, K-pop, my God, where this is just standard operating procedure.
Yeah.
I have to add, let's think about Taylor Swift not as our bestie right now, but as a product. And I want us to think beyond music because other products are sold in exactly the same way. And I'm specifically thinking about my daughter's favorite soda, Mountain Dew. My daughter loves Mountain Dew and she has to have every new flavor. And she knows, which I didn't know, that there are certain flavors that are only sold through Taco Bell or only sold at Walmart. And there's infinite varieties of basically sugar water, right?
Yeah.
So this is marketing beyond pop music. But because Taylor is also an artist and has been so insistent on being an artist, to view her as a product feels somehow offensive, bringing up the other side of this issue, which is the music worth this fetishization? And there's been a lot of debate. And I would say, even though I still think this album is more enjoyable and think it will last longer than some people do. But the commentary I've seen, it's really like, well, there's 38 variations and also the music is terrible. And so why are we buying it?
Yeah.
As opposed to, I guess, if there had been 38 versions of Folklore.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
And then all the critics would be like, oh, yes, oh, please give us the, flower press version that has the dried unicorn blood. I will pay for that because the music is so exquisite.
Also, there were variants on Folklore, but only 20 variants as far as I can tell.
Yeah.
Now, let's not forget that Taylor, has been a best-selling artist for nearly 2 decades, and her efforts to sell physical albums go way back to the beginning of her career. There was, for example, her partnership with Papa John's for her 2012 album, Red, where, this is a good deal, mind you. For $22, you could buy a pizza and Taylor's new album and have them delivered to you. Just a side note. Those Papa John's boxes were printed with Taylor's album cover on them. And you can buy one of those cardboard pizza boxes for $513 on eBay right now.
Oh my gosh.
So I wonder, what's different now? Why is this grinding everybody's gears?
I think it's just proxy rage.
Say more, please.
People are very mad in general right now about everything. And Taylor Swift she enters into this conversation with an album full of songs that are flaunting her material success, her partnership with an equally wealthy...
Not equally wealthy, but...
Okay, not equally. Fair, okay.
They both clear a certain bar
Yes.
with mega wealth, yeah.
With a wealthy guy.
I will say she is also a billionaire.
So here comes a billionaire in a feather boa. It just drives everybody crazy.
There is a level of fame at which your ability to craft art that speaks to everyday people gets called into question. And that's actually a theme of the life of a showgirl, is this kind of pursuit of and desire for normalcy. The song Wish List is directly about that, of I don't necessarily want or need all these trappings, I just want you.
I just want you, baby. Have a couple kids, got the whole block looking like.
But at the same time, lots and lots and lots of lyrical references to luxury brands.
It's a good thing I like my friends cancel. You know that I like 'em cooked in Gucci and in scandal.
Lyrical references to a lifestyle that nobody outside of a small pocket of people can remotely understand. The other thing that I really want to point out here is part of what we're talking about the class resentment is that the music industry is extremely broken for most working musicians. It is so hard out there. You have a shrinking middle class. It is harder and harder to make a living.
We talked about that a little bit on this show with Isabella Gomez Sarmiento about how artists end up doing sex work in OnlyFans because there is a shrinking middle class for musicians.
Right. It's getting harder and harder. And so when a Taylor Swift or a Beyonce are constantly coming back to you, if you ever get on political text lists or email lists,
oh my God,
and all of a sudden you get 400 asks a day, won't you please send money to a campaign that has $100 million in the bank? There is this sense of man, I don't need to send Taylor Swift $34 with shipping for a vinyl record. I should be spending that on a poster by my favorite band playing the local coffee shop because they actually need that money to survive.
Coming up,
here's my pet theory about the life of a showgirl. It's just pure speculation. I believe she could not stand that Tortured Poets Department was the last record she made.
stick around.
This message comes from Schwab. Everyone has moments when they could have done better. Same goes for where you invest. Level up and invest smarter with Schwab. Get market insights, education, and human help when you need it.
Support for NPR and the following message come from HP. Ready to meet the personal AI assistant that lives right on your PC? Introducing the HP AI PC with AI Companion. Experience working with powerful AI tools at your fingertips, even when you're offline. Analyze multiple documents at once, get key takeaways from long articles, or upload a 50-page contract and ask your PC to summarize the risks. And when you need to analyze sensitive files securely, just switch to on-device mode to keep your data local, private, and secure. With HP AI PCs, you get to focus on creative, strategic work and let AI handle the rest. Because HP believes that with the right tools, work doesn't have to feel like work. Learn more at hp.com/AIPC.
This message comes from KeyBank. Every successful business evolves, and to keep up, you need a banking relationship that evolves too. When you collaborate with KeyBank, you don't get one-size-fits-all solutions. Their expansive team of experts across industry verticals is always ready with bespoke solutions for your biggest challenges and opportunities. They know all businesses are different, and that's why they approach business differently. Reimagine business as usual. KeyBank opens doors. Learn more at key.com/B2B.
Going back to the variant thing, right? The breadth of variant offerings does feel like a new practice. I read in an article in Variety that the number of physical variants related to top 10 Billboard 200 albums started increasing in the second quarter of 2020. Why did this practice start, and how has it ramped up in the years since?
Well, the hint is right there in the words, the second quarter of 2020. The advent of COVID sent people home, stopped touring artists in their tracks. If you remember, Taylor Swift was about to do the Lover tour and ended up having to put it on ice. And because Taylor Swift cannot stop, she's like a shark. If she stops moving, she'll die. She ended up recording Folklore and Evermore and kind of kicking off the phase of her career that she did. But I think COVID upended the standard business model of you go out on tour, you sell $60 t-shirts, you have these communal bonding experiences. Well, the communal bonding experiences shifted to the internet. The communal bonding experiences shifted to, I'm going to order things delivered to my home. I would imagine there was sort of a discovery process of there is an audience out there that is extremely eager to spend money on their favorite music. And a pendulum swinging back away from entirely streaming-based consumption of music. An increasing desire to hold something in your hands, to display physical artwork.
Stephen, you're absolutely right. Vinyl came back into style. Collecting has always been a thing, but streaming at the same time is draining the economy for artists, right? It's making it harder to make money. I think one of the reasons why we feel exploited by someone like Taylor, and especially with this album in which she's playing a role that may be partly also herself, of this distanced, superstar figure. This is kind of her Ziggy Stardust. I'm not saying it's as good as that album, okay? So don't write me. It's not, okay? I'm a Bowie forever kind of girl. But this is kind of her Ziggy Stardust character. I am this hardened pop star. I'm this decadent pop star. Yeah. And I think that it's harder for people to not feel exploited when they're buying something within this narrative than they would when they were buying something in her, I'm opening my heart and I'm this vulnerable woman that Maddie Healy, held my hand and lied to me,
I want to talk a little bit more about how this lots of variants strategy has been used by other artists. And Stephen, you mentioned to one of our producers that a smaller K-pop group called P1 Harmony also did this recently. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, so on last week's Billboard charts, a group called P1 Harmony debuted in the top 10 with a 5-song EP called EX. I had actually never heard of P1 Harmony.
Me either.
They had charted several albums before, but P1 Harmony released this EP almost entirely physically. They had racked up a total of 40,000 equivalent album units, which is the mix of sales and streaming that goes into putting together the Billboard albums chart.
Okay.
Of the 40,000 equivalent album units they sold, 39,000 of them were physical copies.
Whoa. Wow.
Almost entirely physical copies. Now, P1 Harmony did a whole bunch of variant editions, CD copies with ephemera. There are all these different techniques that they're used to get people to buy multiple copies. But a group that is not by any stretch of the imagination a household name, was able to hit the Billboard Top 10 because of this strategy of putting out many variant editions of an album that a few extremely dedicated fans purchased. Now, this is very, very common on the Billboard charts. The Billboard charts are a combination of legacy titles that people never stopped listening to, like Fleetwood Mac's Rumors or Nirvana's Nevermind, and it is albums that come out, they leverage the passion of superfans, and then the album just plummets down the chart. In the second week, the P1 Harmony EP dropped to like somewhere in the 170s. I was actually surprised it was still on the Billboard 200.
It feels actually very akin to like how I think a lot of like movie studios think about opening weekends. It's like you got to come in at the beginning, go hard, get the money. It's like it feels like a smash and grab a little bit.
A little bit.
I can understand why an artist who is probably not making a ton would want to figure out any strategy they could to make money. I get why smaller artists would do it, but like to a lot of people, an artist of Taylor Swift's magnitude, what she's doing, what they're doing, looks like greed. Like, I don't know, is it greed or is it really important for an artist as big as someone like Taylor Swift to release all these variants?
I'm so glad you asked that question, actually, because I've seen a lot of commentary that, you know, people are talking about greed makes bad art and all this. I actually don't think greed is the right term, but I do think power and influence are the right terms.
100%.
I think controlling the narrative is an important concept to talk about here. Here's my pet theory about the life of a showgirl. Taylor Swift put out this extremely vulnerable and, you know, received in a mixed way album with Tortured Poets Department, right? Like that was her, by her own admission, making music when she was miserable. And then the Eras Tour, which we haven't even talked about.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing that made her a billionaire.
Yeah, exactly. But, you know, she stages the Eras Tour and she gains her power back. She also is now in a relationship with Travis.
She purchased her masters.
Exactly.
Yeah.
She's on top. And it's just pure speculation. I believe she could not stand that Tortured Poets Department was the last record she made before she perhaps might step away for a year or two and enjoy married life. I just don't think she could handle that being the record that was out there. And she had to make a record where she's like, I'm on top. I have a hot boyfriend. He has something that's like a redwood tree in his life.
I mean, if I was in a similar position, like, I suppose I would want to put a finer point on like, hey, I'm living really good. In case you forgot. I want to think about also, though, like the other merch that's available out there that these celebrities are selling. I mean, Rihanna, Selena Gomez, Ariana Grande, Lady Gaga. I mean, they all have their own beauty lines. But, you know, Taylor Swift is kind of different from a lot of people who do that in that regard. In that, you know, of course she's got some merch, but other than that, she kind of only focuses on the sales of her music and music-related ventures, like a concert film or a tour. Does that change the calculus at all? Like, I mean, she's kind of solely focused on the business of her music, and the way to grow her business is to create more and more product. Like, I don't know, do we view other artists' separate ventures differently because they aren't music? You know, or thinking specifically even about Rihanna's case, you know, somebody who's also a billionaire.
I'm so glad you brought the conversation to this point, because I think maybe this is, and I hadn't really been thinking about this, but maybe this even more than that proxy rage that I was talking about toward any billionaire, maybe this is what's causing this discomfort with what's happening with Taylor. I feel like there's a floating anxiety out there about what is actual art, what is creativity, how can an artist make work and still survive and not become a product? These are huge questions right now in our culture, and maybe some of the vitriol being expressed toward Taylor Swift is about that, kind of this fear of the death of art or some fetishized idea of what art is. And Taylor's very insistent that she is an artist. She's not a K-pop star who's like, I was trained to do this. I'm part of a product, you know. And in fact, she's even answered her critics of this album by saying, I'm not the art police.
The rule of show business is if it's the first week of my album release and you are saying either my name or my album title, you're helping. And art, I have a lot of respect for people's subjective opinions on art. I'm not the art police.
So can you be an artist and the supreme salesperson at the same time? It feels like a very hot question at this moment, as all of the systems that allowed for middle-class artists or working-class artists to survive have collapsed.
If this is all a way for artists to make income, and I do think that if people enjoy your music, like, you should absolutely be compensated fairly for that. But I don't know, at what point do you think it becomes a parasitic relationship with fans? Like, where would you draw the line?
I would encourage people to draw an internal line.
Yeah.
Think about yourself and how you are receiving this work, what your relationship is with the artists you admire, and maybe walk yourself back from making a purchase that's more habitual or status-driven than actually rewarding you in any way. I think it's just a good moment to kind of confront how you practice consumerism, you know?
I love that answer.
Yeah, that's a great answer.
Oh my gosh, I had such a great time with you both today. Stephen, and thank you both so much for joining me.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for having me.
That was Stephen Thompson, host for NPR Music and Pop Culture Happy Hour, and Ann Powers, NPR music critic and correspondent. And you all know I love hearing from you. And I just want to shout out one comment I read this week on our episode about whether college is still important. Spotify user Tara M. Nestor wrote, quote, "Picturing my college debt as a monkey on my back definitely makes it a more humorous load to bear. I also related to the part where you mentioned that a degree is a good long-term investment, but doesn't pay the rent today." Tara, I hope I pronounce your name right with one of those. I hope you can sling that monkey off your back. Also, I hope it does end up feeling like a good long-term investment. As excruciating as my college career felt at the time, I do feel like it's paid off over the years. And to everybody else, I love hearing what y'all connect with in these episodes. So wherever you're listening, drop a comment or review, and you might just hear me shout you out right here on this show. This episode of It's Been a Minute was produced by
Liam McBain.
This episode was edited by
Nina Pathak.
Our supervising producer is
Barton Girdwood.
Our executive producer is
Verilyn Williams.
Our VP of programming is
Yolanda Sanguini.
All right, that's all for this episode of It's Been a Minute from NPR. I'm Brittany Luce. Talk soon.
This message comes from NPR sponsor Pete and Jerry's Eggs, inviting you to tag along with one of their organic, pasture-raised hens as she heads out for her day in the pasture. She and her friends start to roam and forage, hunting for tasty organic snacks. And with 108 square feet per hen, there's plenty of space for everyone. Under the open sky, they can hear songbirds nesting in the trees. They bask in the sounds of nature as they prepare to lay their rich, delicious eggs. And when the sun starts to set, the crickets begin to sing. Time to catch one last squiggly snack before bedtime. To learn more about Pete and Jerry's organic pasture-raised eggs and the certified humane farms where their hens roam, visit peteandjerrys.com.